Well, hello. Welcome back to the Scale My Ecom Store podcast. Kath Langman here with you again on the show. And in the last couple of months, it has felt as though and seemed as though every single digital marketing platform that we need to use for our e-commerce businesses, to promote them, to sell on them, they've all been rolling out pretty major changes to their algorithms, functionality changes to their platforms, all of the above. And Klaviyo is no exception. And whilst, of course, new functionality is often good, it's designed to deepen the integration with your online store. It's designed to help you make more money with new functionality. The changes do tend to disrupt the performance in the short term. And I have definitely noticed that the automated flows in probably most of the Klaviyo accounts that I've been looking into in recent weeks, and I see a lot, have taken a bit of a downward turn. And look, a little bit of that can certainly be due to, maybe the usual kind of Easter and school holiday shopping dip that typically happens in April, but certainly not all of it. And flows like your new subscriber welcome flow and your abandoned cart flow, they're usually the biggest money spinners. And I've definitely noticed that they have been dropping in terms of your placed order rate and revenue per recipient. And that is not a situation that you want to allow to continue. So in this episode, we're going to discuss 4 steps that you can take to make more money from your automated flows in Klaviyo. And look, if you haven't taken a look or reviewed or revised your Klaviyo flows in recent months or years, in the case of a lot of the accounts that I audit, then I want you to use this episode as a little bit of a kick up the bum to get you in there today and start having a look. Ultimately, you really do want your Klaviyo account to be generating or contributing a good 30% of your revenue. And ideally, you want the majority of that to come from your automated flows. So if your metrics aren't looking like that, then time to get in there. All right, so the first step that you want to go through is to actually analyze your flows and figure out if they do need to be revised or optimized. So what do you need to do there? I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want to just be making changes for the sake of making changes. We want to be, first of all, acknowledging what your current results are. So you want to be looking at the results in your flows, looking at your benchmark metrics, and find out what the total revenue generated perhaps over the last month in each flow, as well as the placed order rate and revenue per recipient. So in Klaviyo, they use the term placed order rate, but that's essentially the conversion rate in there. So you want to look at the placed order rate and revenue per recipient, as well as just the total revenue generated by the flows. And you want to compare that to your previous results. So I would be looking at the previous 30 days, potentially if you've had your Klaviyo account for some time, also compare it to the same period of time last year. And then you also want to be looking at your current results compared to your benchmarks, which you'll find in your account. And you really want to make sure that you are comparing flow by flow and not just the overall account averages if you want to try and identify what needs some work in there. Now, if your placed order rate or your revenue per recipient rate is down, then it is definitely time to revise the flow. If only the total revenue is down, but maybe the other metrics are the same or even better, then you might want to start looking at a few other things. For example, looking at the volume of new contacts entering the flow. Also look on your website. Have your best sellers sold out, or are you, perhaps running a sale and the average order value is down? I mean, you just need to look at a little bit more of a broader context. If it's, metrics are typically the same, but the total revenue is down. Generally speaking, I'm seeing that the placed order rate and often the revenue per recipient are both down, and that's what's causing the revenue to drop as well. So after you have done that little bit of reconciliation in there, identified what, if anything, needs to be revised and optimized, then the second thing that you really want to move on to is how to get more people into your flows and or into your Klaviyo account. And this is about really looking at your list building strategies. How many and what types of opt-in forms are you using to grow your list? And if you have, like most e-commerce stores these days, will have some kind of an opt-in form. They'll have a pop-up that often is, nice looking image and a 10% off discount offer or something along those lines. But it's generally pretty basic. There's, often no more to it than that. So you want to look at a couple of things here. You want to look at the form submit rate on any and all active forms that you have in your Klaviyo account. But especially those that are, the one or ones that generate the most subscribers for you. So oftentimes there'll be a welcome pop-up. There might be a version for mobile and desktop, or there might just be one that is the same for both. If your opt-in forms have a submit rate that is significantly less than 5%, then you definitely want to revise this. I mean, think about it, if you only have, say, 1 or 2% of people who visit your website actually signing up for your list, that's a lot of people you aren't able to follow up with. So you also want to be looking at the list building, so form submit rate and the number of contacts that you're adding to your list per month. You also want to look at this kind of in context with your conversion rate on your welcome series. So we're going to get into the welcome series flow in a minute, but when you think about it, it's all well and good to get people onto your list, but if the incentive that you're using to entice them onto your list actually doesn't influence people to buy from you very effectively, then it's not a great list builder, right? As an e-commerce business, the goal is to make some money in your business, and for that, we need to be able to convert new orders from the list building incentive. So have a look at this list builder, the submit rate, but also side by side with the placed order rate of your welcome series. If you realize that your submit rate is low and you also think that perhaps you could do a little bit better of a job converting from your welcome series, and perhaps you might need to try some different incentives or different things to get more people over the line, here are a few things that I would recommend that you test. Don't do them all at once, but because if you do everything all at once, essentially you won't know what was the big differentiating factor. So you definitely want to be able to identify what efforts you make that actually make a difference. I would suggest split testing different incentives. So whether you go with $1 off and a % off, whether you try a % off and a gift with purchase. One of our clients has done exceptionally well with a discounted trial pack bundle, which is good because it gets people buying at a decent average order value, but it also, it's the sort of product that people need a lot more of, so they typically will come back and buy more. So you want to have a think about what different incentives you're wanting to try. Just try 2 at once, but one of them should be the current incentive as well, because you need to be able to have that baseline to compare against. I also see a lot of forms these days that are just asking for the email only. And when you think about how you can go on from, you start by getting people onto the list, but from there, you obviously need to be sending emails to people and trying to offer some valuable content that helps them to make a purchase decision. And one thing that can really help emails convert at a higher rate is personalization. So for that, you need to be starting to collect some first names on that opt-in form. So I do suggest starting to add that in if you haven't already got it in there. Having a look at the visual design as well, and looking at the layout of the form, the imagery that you use, and do a version that's optimized for mobile and a version that's optimized for desktop. If you're using just the one form and relying on Klaviyo to optimize that kind of automatically for you, then generally speaking, the mobile version of the form will be text only and there won't be any imagery. Which is fine if it's converting at 5% or higher, but if it's not, then, maybe it just needs to look a little bit more enticing. Also, wanting to look at the heading text, the subheading text, and the button text. I think it's very easy to just copy what other people are doing and, just have a heading text that says want 10% off, and then it's an email field and maybe a button that says click here or something like that. And, I guess at the end of the day, that doesn't really inform the customer of, yes, they might get a discount, but if they're not, they haven't really had a chance to look around and decide they want to buy from you. So how could you add a little bit more personality, a little bit more, communicating the value that they would get? And then also use a little bit of language on the button as well. It's like, really gets them excited. So it's like, yes, get my exclusive code here, or no thanks underneath it. So they have to decide, do they want it or do they not want it? If you haven't already added the teaser step to your opt-in form in Klaviyo, definitely get that. So when Klaviyo first started implementing pop-up opt-in forms, they didn't have the little tab that would sit permanently in the bottom corner or the side corner of the website window, but they do now, and it's called a teaser. And I highly recommend that you add that in, because what happens if a website visitor comes to your website, they see the pop-up, but maybe they're not ready to sign up yet because they want to have more of a look at your products and so on. So they dismiss the form. And if they do that, then you really want that teaser to still be visible in the corner of the website. So if they do decide they want that code or they want that gift with purchase or whatever it is, then they can click on the teaser tab and it will pop the form back up. If you haven't already set up SMS marketing, I would definitely recommend getting onto that now and start building an SMS list before you head into the fourth quarter of the year. It takes a little while to build an SMS list. Definitely something that I notice is that forms that ask for a name, an email, and an SMS, like a mobile number for SMS all at once on one pop-up, tend not to be very successful at collecting mobile numbers. So make it a two-step form. And ideally, the second step where you're asking for the mobile number, give them a better discount or a better incentive instead of the email, so that it makes it worth their while. If you have a brand or products that appeal to younger adults versus older adults, then you'll probably find SMS is more popular versus the other way around. Also test, the different timings of, how quickly or slowly the form pops up. If your pop-up pops up immediately, you'll probably find most people are dismissing it before they actually fill it in. And then, something else that you could do is to add an exit intent form. And if you do that, I would probably be looking at making it a little bit different, or you could make it the same as your welcome form, but put it in on a different pop-up so that it's not literally the same form. And then that way you can tell how many people are coming from exit intent versus, the regular pop-up. So once you have, any of these changes or optimizations that you make to anything in your Klaviyo account or anything on your website or anything in your marketing or advertising, when you're making changes, make a note of them. Hopefully you've got a metrics tracker. If you don't, you can get one from us. Just go to catherinelangman.com. You'll find the link to grab a free growth pack in there, and you can download a editable dashboard in there, but make a note of the changes that you make so that when you review your results next month, you can see what changes or improvements have occurred as a result. All right, so once you've looked at your list building and getting more people into your flows, then of course we want to convert more customers from, more new customers from your welcome series. So again, you want to start by reviewing your metrics, and obviously you want to look at the metrics of the flow overall, but then you want to dive into the nitty-gritty and look at the metrics on each email within the flow. And compare that to your benchmark averages as well, so that you should all have benchmarks in your Klaviyo account, and you can compare how each email is performing. I mean, general rule of thumb is that you'll convert most people on the first one, so that would be to be expected, but you want to be converting on all emails in your flow. Next thing, have a look at how many emails you have in your flow. And whilst you're at it, just try and think critically about the content in them. I mean, is it, just the bog standard content that comes as part of the flow template, or have you thought strategically through what your ideal customers need to know, understand, and believe in order to want to buy from you, and tailor and personalize the content in there? But the number of emails, I mean, I've seen some flows recently that have so many emails in that welcome series flow. It's kind of ridiculous. And when you think about it, I mean, unless you're selling something that is, well over $1,000, you shouldn't need a lot of emails. I've definitely seen people selling $50 products and they've got a ridiculous number of emails in that flow. You don't need that. The idea is that you try and help somebody make a purchase within a week of coming onto your list. If you do have SMS marketing set up in your Klaviyo account, have a welcome series that is split between a mix of SMS and email, or just email only, so that you can kind of funnel people into the right segment. Also, if you are doing a split test on your opt-in form incentive, then you're also going to need to set up a segmented flow for your welcome series, so that people get the actual the correct code or the correct offer in their emails. But then there are a bunch of other things that you can do that will help you get better results from your flow. From this flow, actually, a lot of this is going to be relevant to any flow that you do, and probably any email that you send from the campaign section as well. Number one, you can split test the sending email name. So the from name is the name that appears next to the email address when you're looking in your email inbox. And I've seen a number of brands testing different emails, going from either the brand name or the founder's name, or even a more fun name that they give their VIP subscriber list. And, if you picture your email inbox and what it looks like, typically that name is going to appear in bold. So it does kind of stand out. Secondly, you can, sort of alongside that is split testing the from email address. Now, a really big no-no here is, do not send your marketing emails from a no reply email address. You do not want to make it harder for your customers to get in touch with you by forcing them to click through to your website contact form. That's really it's really a bit mean, and people aren't going to want to go to that effort. They'll go somewhere else. And we don't want to make them feel unwelcome. But, so I guess dead obvious here, obviously make sure it's a legit live email that, ultimately, if you can get people replying to your emails, it is going to do wonders for improving your deliverability rates in your Klaviyo account. So I always highly recommend asking a question every now and again and getting people to reply to you. But I have also seen a number of brands testing sending from a different company email address, as well as sending names. Sometimes it could be the founder's name and email address, sending a more personal message, versus, perhaps like the VIP list name or group name, community name, whatever you have, and that specific email address, and so on and so forth. So it's all about just trying to stand out a little bit more in the recipient's inbox, but also to get, I guess, certain messages would, be elicit a higher conversion rate coming from a certain name and email address. Once you've kind of thought about that, though, you can move on to reviewing your subject lines and the preview text. And if you have open rates that are lower than benchmark average in your account, then this is then, this is hugely important. So, because at the end of the day, what's the point of having a big email list if no one opens your emails? Now, I'm of probably a generation that studied old school advertising gurus like David Ogilvy. So Ogilvy and Mather, don't know if they're still called that these days, but they were one of the a global advertising agency that almost invented the industry probably. But he said back in the day, he said on average 5 times as many people read the headline as they do the body copy, and when you've written your headline you have spent 80 cents out of your dollar. Now, obviously that relates to traditional advertising, but honestly, the same goes for your emails, your marketing emails, and the subject line is your heading, right? And it's been proven over and over again, if there is one part of your marketing emails that you should spend, more time agonizing over and finessing, it's your subject line, because if you can't get that right, you won't have people opening your emails. And if they don't open your emails, they're not going to buy from them. So a few tips to help you with this, because I know lots of you do not feel like you're confident copywriters. So I'm going to share a few tips here with you. You want to avoid salesy words as much as you can. If you do need to include salesy words or incentive type words, put it in the preview text, not in the subject line. As much as we know that scarcity or FOMO is a really incredibly powerful tool for generating sales, you really want to stick that, free such and such or % off, or your coupon's about to expire, all of that kind of stuff. You put it in the preview text, not subject line, just because it's going to help your emails at least land in the promotions folder rather than the spam folder a little bit more successfully, and hopefully even the inbox. Firstly, it is just more likely to be flagged as spam or just get caught up in spam filters, depending on, the settings that the individual might have. They might have a really strict spam filter. And so we don't want to be sending emails to people's spam. That's not going to help your own sending reputation at all, and you might start to see your open rates decline more consistently over time. But secondly, it is pretty hard to stand out from the crowd if you are saying the exact same thing as everyone else. And you want to bear in mind that, most of us receive hundreds, if not thousands now, of emails and messages per day. So to cut through that noise and clutter, you need to be different. You particularly need to keep this in mind when it comes to time, like, common promotional times, whether it's Mother's Day, whether it's Black Friday or Christmas or whatever. If you are using the same headlines as everyone else, subject lines rather, you aren't going to be noticed as much by a long shot. That being said, though, don't always do the same thing. You want to mix it up a bit. So I think long gone are the days where people used to, put things like newsletter edition 1 or 2 or whatever in the subject line. So, not using a series type thing, but I don't think people do that anymore. But, essentially, you just don't want to be doing things that are exactly the same or too similar to everything else that you send, but also that you see everyone else sending. Because spam filters, again, they're going to look for these things, but also just from our own human behavior, if things look the same, then we just, our brains kind of tune it out because we think, oh, I've seen that before, I don't need to worry about that. Our brains are really efficient at only presenting us with information that it thinks is pertinent in the moment. So a few other things to remember with your subject lines. Shorter is better, 50 characters or less. Have you tried asking questions? And, certainly adding some emojis in can help stand out in the inbox. Don't be in a rush to promote something using all caps or exaggerated promotional phrases or lots of exclamation marks, and definitely no clickbaiting, because if you mislead your audience once, they probably won't forgive you. You definitely can use urgency, but if you overdo this tactic, like always being on sale, then that is also going to stop being effective. So then you want to review the pre-header text. So do you know what the pre-header text is? It's the text that appears in your email inbox next to the subject line. So most people would see the subject line is bold, and immediately after that is the preview text. Now, if there's no preview text input into the email as you're building it, it's just going to take the first line of text in the email. And often that's going to be view email in browser, because that's a template that a lot of people have. Typically, I get rid of that because most people aren't going to click on it. And it's not very enticing, and it just doesn't usually get anyone clicking on it. So do yourself a massive favor and delete that line of text and replace it with something that makes sense to your audience, but also that you might perceive it as a subheading to the heading. So if the heading is your subject line, then the pre-header is the subheading, and it can add more context. You can put more of the incentive stuff in there. And it can definitely help improve your click-through rates. I mean your open rates, not click-through rates. In terms of the click-through rate, we want to review the design and the content. So is the incentive very easy to spot? You want to put it as design it as a heading on the hero image, maybe have that as an animated GIF so it's really obvious, and design it with a call to action button on that hero image. It's not actually a button, it's just part of the image, but make it really stand out there. In terms of the content, are you using dynamic product content? Highly recommend doing that with your Klaviyo emails. Do you have some actual content of interest in the emails? I don't just give them the code and show them some product, because a lot of recipients, they'll probably be left scratching their heads thinking, what's in it for me? You want to be having a little bit of content that helps the reader to decide if they want to buy from you. Is this the right thing for them to choose? And then also thinking about whether you've included all the sales conversion elements, taking people through that kind of purchase decision-making journey: attention, interest, desire, social proof, action. And most important, is it really obvious how they can actually buy? So your emails need to pass what I call the squint test. A lot of people are looking at emails on their mobile phone these days, which is a pretty small screen. And so you don't bury your call to action buttons, or don't, omit them entirely. Make it super easy for people to figure out how they buy from the email. And one last thing as well, don't forget to send yourself a test email before you send the email or send it live. Make sure you look at it on your desktop and your mobile, assess all of those things that I've just gone through, click on all the links as well, make sure it really looks good. And then I also want to talk, step 4 here, I want to talk about converting more of your warm leads, your cart abandoners, because recently Klaviyo, in a recent Klaviyo update, I'm not sure if it was the one just at the start of April, it feels like about then, but it seems like they've removed the added to cart metric as being a standard thing. So now to track adds to cart, you actually need to add a snippet of code to your website, much like with the browse abandon as well, or the viewed product snippet, which is what triggers their browse abandon. But historically, the abandoned cart flows were triggered by adding to cart but not checking out, but now they're actually triggered by abandoning the checkout but not completing the purchase. And I want you to consider the steps in the sales funnel. Maybe Klaviyo thought, well, Shopify's moved to one-page checkout, so it's all the same thing anyway. And so we'll just make it the, abandoned checkout. But, I've seen so many of these, what were called abandoned cart flows, and are now actually an abandoned checkout flow, decline in performance. And these should be your warmest leads at the end of the day. So to see that flow decline is not cool. And, I guess at the end of the day, if you consider the steps in a sales funnel, way more people are going to add to cart than they do go on to initiate checkout. And so it kind of makes sense, I guess, that if we're only targeting the abandoned checkout, then we'll be talking to a lot fewer people. But something that we've noticed is if a lot of websites are using the mini cart function on your Shopify store, and that's not starting the checkout. And so people aren't entering into this flow. And yet those customers are still really, really warm leads. So what you want to do is go and add that snippet of code to your website and then set up a true abandoned cart flow. You can have that as well as the abandoned checkout. Just edit the profile filters in the flow and make sure that you are excluding purchases as well as, initiating checkout. So if you're having the both. But then go through similar steps as I was talking about with the welcome series emails. You want to review all of the emails in this flow, looking at the metrics, the open rates, click rates, placed order rates against, your historic results, but also look at against benchmarks. I mean, the benchmark should be something that you're aiming to improve on, so if you're not hitting benchmark, then you've got some work to do. And then you can start to test some different things. So if you haven't already tried the segmented cart abandoned flow, highly recommend giving that a go. And you can split test different incentives, perhaps split around order values that are lower than the free shipping threshold or higher than the free shipping threshold. So you could offer a free shipping code to those below that threshold and maybe something else, whether it's a discount or something else to people above that. Or you could test an incentive for high average order values and incentivize lower values to spend more by telling them what they would get if they spent up to that higher average order value. Ultimately, with your abandoned cart flow emails, you do want to keep these short, but you definitely want to make sure you are using the dynamic cart content widget, showing what they add to cart. And you don't want to just stick to the flow template content either, because it is pretty boring and it's very generic and people see it all the time. So I want you to have a little bit more fun injecting some of your brand personality into those emails, as well as, making sure that you do communicate your brand promise. For example, how soon do your customers want to experience the benefits that your products provide? Kind of tease them a little bit like that. But don't forget other kind of conversion content like social proof, offering customer service help or any other risk reversal content that is going to shift the needle for your customers. All right, so those are, a few really, really high impact steps that you can go through in your Klaviyo account that will help you to make more money from this account. And, don't just remember that you should be aiming for your Klaviyo account to contribute at least 30% of your overall revenue. And, ideally, like I said at the start, I like to see the majority of this coming from your automated flows if possible. Sometimes that's not possible, just depending on the business, but it should be, at least half, right? And when you think about it, the more money that you make from your Klaviyo account, the more profitable your business will be because you aren't reliant quite as much on paid advertising to get all of your traffic and sales in your online store. It's only going to help you to get a better return on investment on your ad spend when you can increase your Klaviyo contributed sales as well. Obviously, people go from the paid traffic to your website. Most of them aren't ready to buy straight away. So yes, we might be retargeting them with retargeting ads, but we also want them to subscribe to your email list, subscribe to your SMS list, and go into the automated follow-ups there, because you will convert more people that way and therefore rely less on paid ads to make more money. So hopefully by now you're feeling super motivated to make more money from your automated flows in Klaviyo and really get the most value from your Klaviyo account and, just your email marketing channel generally. Now, as always, you've got 3 choices to get this done. You can figure it out alone via trial and error. You could come and learn from us and we can shorten that learning curve for you, or, you can outsource it to somebody else who's an expert and, really get the best job done in the quickest time possible. Each is a valid choice. And each is going to take different varying lengths of time. So if you do want to speed up that process of learning or implementing and getting results faster, please reach out to me, because there are a variety of ways that I can help you depending on the stage of business that you are at. This is what I do and my team does, and we love to do every single day. So whether you're looking for coaching to help you learn and implement these things, or you're looking for a team of experts to outsource to, we're here. So just head over to catherinelangman.com to find out about working with us. But that is it for today's episode. I really hope that you've enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, I would be so grateful if you decided to leave us a review over on iTunes and to help other e-commerce brand owners to discover a fabulous podcast that will help them, be more successful in their business. But for now, have a fantastic rest of the day and week, and I will be back on the show with you again next week. Bye for now.